What's up, everybody? Welcome again to the Chasing Creativity podcast. This is episode 26 with electronic music producer Kindred. What is up, everyone? All right, so couple bits of news to start. I love doing this podcast. I love speaking with the artists. I love all of you out there listening, but I do not enjoy doing this stupid introduction. It's important, but I've recorded it a few times now. I always mess something up, and it's getting really annoying. So this one is going to be from start to finish. If I make mistakes, who cares? The importance is in the episode itself, of course. So, before we jump any further, today's episode is with Mousetrap artist Kindred. Now, I'm super excited to get into this, to get into the episode, but before we jump into all of that fun stuff, the song you just heard out is titled Intense from the film composer Saku, S-A-K-U. Now, he reached out to me over Instagram, shared some music, we got to chatting, and I got links to the music, and I didn't get links to, say, Spotify or SoundCloud. So the best way to follow up with him, if you'd like to go and support his music, learn more, support him as an artist, you can find him on Instagram at SAKURANTAMAULA. And I will be sharing that out over Instagram following today's episode, and I will make sure to share out his Spotify and SoundCloud as well once I get information as to where he wants to point listeners to go to check out more about his music. So check him out. Again, he's a friend of the podcast, right? And I want this to be a community where we support one another. So I really do, I'd love it if you would go check out his music and support him as an artist. So moving forward, if you would like your music shown out at the beginning of an episode, you can reach out to me via Instagram or over email at chasingcreativitypodcast@gmail.com or on Instagram at chasing.creativity.podcast. Now, I know I've said that in other episodes, but hey, for those new people out there who have just come across this podcast, hopefully it's all new information. So on to podcast news. Now, this is really cool. I'm really excited about this. We are live streaming on Twitch. So if you would like to see the conversation streamed live in real time, you can ask questions at the end of the episodes. Go check out the Twitch stream. It's twitch.tv/chasingcreativitypodcast. Now, don't just check out the website. Please subscribe. It does make a difference because when we go live, you'll get a little email notification saying, Chasing Creativity Podcast just went live with, say, Kindred, or Sunday with Solanka, who is released on Lane 8's record label, This Never Happened. Yes, we are doing an episode this Sunday with Solanka. We will be streaming it live, and then that episode will be fully released on iTunes and Spotify either that week or the following week. So, again, really, really cool things happening around the Twitch stream. I want to see that thing grow. So if you're listening to these episodes, just go check out one. Subscribe, check out one episode. Again, twitch.tv/chasingcreativitypodcast. Now, on to other important news about the podcast. We do have merch. You can check it out in the store. It's chasingcreativitypodcast.com. I bought a shirt myself just to make sure the vendor quality was good, and I liked what I saw, and the quality's awesome. Shirts look super cool. So if you do want to support the podcast, check out a shirt. Think it's a cool way to support the podcast and get a cool shirt out of the deal too. So that's it. No more plug-in shirts. I will do one last plug, and then I'll just really move it forward into more important things. But there is a Patreon for the podcast. It really can make a big difference. This is a way for you out there to support the podcast. You would get access to Patreon-only exclusive perks, and it does make a huge difference. There are things I want to do moving forward. My goal is to be able to have someone work in the capacity to edit podcast episodes and do a lot of the kind of back end to allowing this thing to run. And if that were to happen, then I would double down and do 2 episodes a week. That's my plan. So really, if you're interested, go check it out. I just want it so it helps build this podcast up. And now on to really, really important things is if you don't want a shirt, if you don't want to support the podcast, whatever, I am just eternally grateful that you are out there listening. And I really do deeply appreciate all the people listening and the guests who have come on and shared their story so far. It's been such an awesome experience for myself. And I love doing it. So I will continue to put out these episodes weekly. And I just hope you're enjoying them and I hope you continue to listen. So that's really it. We'll keep this thing moving on into the future and more cool episodes to come. So now for our guest, the most important part of today, a little tidbit about the conversation that we're about to hear with Kindred. So I will keep this short. I don't want these intros to go too long, but I want to make sure I emphasize that if you're enjoying these episodes, go check out his music. So you can find him at Kindred, that's KINDRID at Spotify, on SoundCloud, on Instagram, he's at Kindred Music. So that's the best way to get in touch with him or follow up and listen to more music. He has released on Mau5trap's We Are Friends Volume 8. So for you Mousetrap fans out there, you're probably already very familiar with his music. He released the track Dynamia on Mousetrap, which we talk about today, and we will there will be a clip of Dynamia just after this intro as we jump into the podcast episode if you're not familiar with his music. So that's it. This episode is really, really cool. We talk about how he started out in music, how he got his start submitting a track to a Deadmau5 stream on Twitch, and then how that really exploded into him releasing on We Are Friends and other things that are here just around the corner for Kindred. So it's really, really cool. I do hope you enjoy the episode. I know I had an awesome time being able to sit down and speak with him. So that's it. We're going to jump right into the episode. Nothing else, no other news, no other notes, nothing to share. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and I look to speak with you all again soon. I think we're live. How's it going, man?
Good. I'm waiting for this to...
Dude. Thank you for doing this, man.
I see it now, and you're welcome.
You see me. So this is all super new, man. Like with the stream, so we're like officially recording now. So for everyone listening to this, I just stumbled around for fucking 30 minutes trying to figure out how to stream through OBS, how to get video cameras to work. So thank you for dealing with all of that crazy bullshit.
You are welcome.
Sweet, man. So first of all, thank you for coming on, man. I'm super excited about this. Of course, you have just released on the most recent release of Mousetrap, We Are Friends Volume 8. So yeah, we're definitely going to get into it. But hey, thank you for coming on.
You are welcome.
Hell yeah. So just kind of a little background, I think, just to kind of kick things off. At least how I got to know you as an artist. I jumped into the Discord channel for Julian Gray. Maybe, man, it might be like a year ago now, something like that. It was actually more than a year and a half ago, something like that. And I remember it was funny because Julian was, of course, releasing on Mousetrap, and he was like the only guy in there releasing. And I met you, I met a lot of other people, and I remember when kind of news came through that, hey, a song's getting picked up by Mousetrap. You were like the first guy in that Discord to like get like that next big step of releasing on Mousetrap. So it's been super cool to get to know you, to get to know your music, and I definitely want to dig into it today.
Okay.
Hell yeah. So how did all of this begin? I mean, like, take us back to like day one, like producing, making music. Like what was that like? Day one.
I've been excuse me, I'm still getting over a sinus infection.
Oh, you're good.
Still, it's been like 4 weeks. I have been doing music related stuff like my entire life. So when I was 3 years old, something like that, I told my parents that I wanted to start taking piano lessons because it looked cool.
Okay.
And so I did that from about 3 years old to about 8 years old, and then I took like a hiatus for a bit. And then in high school, I was playing football, but like I'm a small person, so like that was not a good idea. So I stopped playing football, and also I got injured a few times. And my parents were like, "You need a hobby," and I was like, "Okay, I need a hobby." And we were playing a game at like the local high school because this was at middle school, and I saw their drum line out practicing, and I was like, "Oh, that's cool. That looks like a fun thing." So I decided I wanted to do that. So I did that in high school for about 4 years. And I went to university for like a year and a half as a music ed major. And then a year and a half into that, I was like, I hate doing this. And in 2016, during the summer, I got really bored. And my dad was like, I like bought you Ableton Live for Christmas like a year ago. Why don't you just like start messing around with that? And I was like, okay. And so I did. And then fast forward to like the middle of the semester, and I didn't want to really, be a music teacher anymore. And I decided that I wanted to write electronic music as like my career, which really stupid idea, by the way. But it ended up working out.
Yeah.
When a year later, I was still in school, but like for marketing, and I had like no classes that day. So I like woke up and I noticed Deadmau5 was streaming, and I was like, "Oh, cool!" And I looked at Deadmau5's stream, and he was listening to some music, and I was like, "That doesn't sound like his music. What's happening?" So I stayed for a little bit, and I realized he was taking submissions for $20, and he would like listen to your song. Yeah. And I was like, "Oh shit, it's my chance!" And so I sent in the song "Demise."
Right.
And then that whole thing happened where like he really liked it, and then like a week later he sent me a message, like, "Hey, I want to remix your song," and I was like, "What?
Holy shit,
like,
dude!
What?"
I didn't hear about that.
Yeah, it's insane. I don't know where that remix is, but I mean, still, it was like an insane experience to be part of.
Good lord, yeah.
I don't know. And then he worked on it on stream actually for like 3-ish hours. And that VOD's still up. And then just waited, and then in like March, Mousetrap's Twitter account sent me a message on Twitter like, "Hey, send us music." And I was like, "Oh, all right." And then I did. And then fast forward to January, and now it's out.
Dude, so that's fucking crazy. Now, were you of course you were watching Deadmau5 stream, so I have to imagine you were a Deadmau5 fan. Was that like a long thing, like a long period in your life where you were a fan of his music, or what was that like?
Yeah. I actually wasn't really super into EDM until about 2014. But before that, I was super into Deadmau5.
Okay.
The first song I heard by him was actually Ghosts and Stuff, which is really funny because that's like
his like
that's
not markety, but like his I don't know.
It's like his
breakout song.
Like, I know that song.
Yeah,
it's Ghosts and Stuff.
He does Ghosts and Stuff, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm weird, so I like binge listen to that song. And then one day I was like, I wonder if this dude has any more music. and so I went on iTunes because it was still like in 2012. Yeah. And his album title goes Here came out, and I loved that album. That is like one of my favorite all time albums.
Yeah.
I still really love like F and Pig and Sleepless and Maths, and like those are like some of my favorite tracks ever.
Yeah.
For electronic music especially. And then I don't know what happened, but like 2 years later, I didn't realize he released another album, and I was just like perusing through iTunes again, and I saw While One Was Less Than Two came out, and I was like, okay, and I started listening to that.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I've been a Deadmau5 fan for a while.
Dude, that's the craziest. Like, okay, so just, I mean, really, for me to kind of take a step back and look at how that has even progressed. So you have this musical background, which is gonna like lay the foundation for making this music, but still to start writing in Ableton and start working in Ableton, and then a year later fucking submit to a Deadmau5 stream and he's trying to remix your music. That's insane. I mean, that blows my mind, because through these conversations so far, a lot of times it's, and I mean, I don't mean this in a discrediting way. Like, it's amazing that it happened that quickly, but a lot of times people are like, oh, I've been making electronic music for 10 years or whatever, 1 year in, that's fucking crazy.
Yeah, that's why it's a stupid idea to just like drop out of music school and be like, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm just going to write.
Yeah,
it works, so I don't know.
Dude, well, I mean, that's got to be a really... just if I were in your position, like, and to take such a step to be like, hey, I'm dropping out, I'm gonna work on music solely, I'm gonna do this music thing full time, and to take that leap of faith in yourself, and then fuck it, it's like it's clicking, it's fucking happening. That must be a really cool feeling to kind of take a step back and look at it and be like, hey, this thing's clicking a little bit.
Yeah, it was really neat to watch happen. It was kind of insane.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I didn't even have a logo at that point. I remember like talking to my roommate, and I was like, "Oh my god, you know how to use like Photoshop really vaguely? Can you make me like a quick logo?"
Dude, that's a really good position to be in, where you need to have like so much is happening positively with the music that you're like, oh fuck, I need a logo, rather than focusing on a logo and marketing and all this bullshit, and then like there's no music there behind it or whatever. Yeah.
I see that a lot too.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of that. Oh man, so the We Are Friends just came out, so that was super cool. I mean, that was like, first time releasing on Mousetrap. You're in there with people like fucking Eddie and like the
all
crew of
huge ass people.
Yeah, all the crew of Mousetrap, and so that's got to be really cool. So this has been, as I mentioned, as you mentioned, a couple years. So what's kind of happening, if you don't mind me asking, like now? So Mousetrap release happens. Now you're just grinding on music. Any current releases coming out or anything of that sort?
Not that I know of yet.
Okay.
I have an EP that's done.
Yes.
And another single, and I sent it to them, and I'm just waiting for them. So.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, they're busy because they have like a shit ton of stuff coming out. With Mouseville Level 3, and they have a ton of new signings, including me. Yep. I know some other people that sent them stuff, so they're taking their time, which is like understandable.
Yeah. From what I've heard, it's kind of that way where a person won't hear anything, and then suddenly it's like, hey, send us music, this is happening now, kind of thing.
Yeah. Yep, that's how it happens.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. So yeah, a couple of things I wanted to definitely bring up today. I mean, so they seem to be, the label seems to be doing some really cool things recently. It's like the Mouseville stuff is coming out super fast. I mean, I feel like Mouseville 2 was just, maybe I'm crazy, but that was like a few months ago, and now 3's out. So that's right around the corner. November. Okay. Yeah. But still, I mean, I feel like a lot of stuff is coming out, which has got to be good for 2019. I'm assuming more Kindred coming to the surface here.
We will see. I hope so.
Yeah. Well, that's fucking cool, man. And I was just preparing for everything today and looking around at things you've released and stuff, and I had no idea that video that is of Deadmau5 listening to your song, it has like 1.6 million views.
Yeah,
that's so sick. God,
that's a lot. I didn't even shout out to my buddy Not Sure, who had the idea for this originally. I noticed his SoundCloud was getting a ton of traction. I was like, dude, what is happening? And he's like, oh, dude, I made this video and I put it on this subreddit called r/unknown videos. And I was like, it's a great idea. And then I did it. And one day I just started getting all these notifications of comments, and I was like, what is happening? And then I checked the video and it had 100,000 views, and I was like, what is happening? So I just got picked up by YouTube's SEO, and then now it has 1.6 million views. God dang.
That's funny because it's funny. It's kind of the same scenario where it's not like you had the logo and you're ready, you weren't really thinking about, hey, how am I going to market this YouTube video? Let me you were just you put it out and then you look back and it's oh, it's at 100,000 views.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, some of this I feel like, I don't know. Yeah, I that's honestly probably just a good response right now. Just I don't fucking because it's crazy. It's crazy. Deadmau5 hitting you up to be hey, awesome submission. I want to remix your music. I would imagine for so many people out there that are Mousetrap is the label to release on, especially for fans of Deadmau5. So
yeah,
to do so, to submit the music and then Deadmau5 be hey, I want to remix your song that's so sick. That's so sick. But yeah, but not to just totally go and but yeah, man. So, and then I was just checking out your Spotify, and you have a EP that released in 2018. So Godspeed. If you don't mind, for people out there that who are unfamiliar with your music, kind of give a sense of what you look to bring to the table in terms of a unique sound with your music, because it is very different. It stands out for the Mousetrap compilation, totally.
Yeah. So for the Godspeed EP specifically, in January, after the whole thing happened with Deadmau5 in the video or whatever in late December, I was really inspired to write a lot of music that sounded exactly like Demise. So I ended up with 4 or 5 songs that sounded really, really similar. And then I wrote Dynamia, which is on the compilation. So they approached me in March, but it got the compilation was supposed to come out in June, but it got pushed back a lot. I think because Chris Johnson left, and so they were still getting their organization together and stuff like that. So I was okay, I need to get this out because this is not what I make anymore. So I just put those 4 songs together, and I was this is an EP now, and I put it out. And that was what I used to do, which is why I wanted to get it out sooner than later, so that people wouldn't think oh, this is what to expect from this person, because it's really not anymore. I'm really invested in making electro house.
Okay.
Just because I feel that's kind of staying true to myself in a sense, because like I said, my first Deadmau5 album title goes here, and that was right after he did 4x4, and it was still kind of in that electro craze. He did Channel 42 with Wolfgang and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And also I really love this new down tempo Res 1788L, Blank, Reaper, people like that. Right. That kind of sound. I really, really like that. And it's also, I really like that tempo, which is I made that whole EP at that exact same tempo, pretty much.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's kind of a slow jam almost. And I want to do that, but I also don't want to pander too hard.
Got it. Yeah.
And I also don't. I've made a couple. Like I have a couple whips that kind of sound like, Rez made them or like 1788 made them. But then I like always go back to them and I'm like, why did I make that? Like this doesn't sound like me. This isn't what I like making.
Right.
So I'm still kind of working toward like finding my sound or whatever. And it takes a really long time. But I'm definitely pretty much there in the electro department. It's just the down tempo area that I need to like get my stuff together. What's funny though is with this new mid tempo genre, I've found that every artist is just some other genre like slowed down. So like 1788 and like Blank are just dubstep but slowed down.
Right.
Rez is just techno but slowed down.
Yeah.
And I'm like electro but slowed down.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. Yeah. Well,
so that's what I'm gonna try and do, I think.
Well, I mean, with that release on We Are Friends, Dynamia, when you're saying like, okay, you're in this place where you're kind of still trying to refine your sound and find your sound. I mean, to me, that track stands out as so unique on the compilation that I feel like that and also Demise are just like these two fucking the EP as well, but like they're amazing. They're really, really well written tracks. Yeah, and extremely unique. So it's always funny to have these conversations with people who are making music, and I think this is almost everyone across the board, because someone will work on a track and work on a sound and listen to things over and over again, and you listen to your own music so much and you're like, fuck, I don't know, like this is cool, blah blah. Like you can be happy about things for a while and then you're like, I don't know. And then from an outsider like myself, I listen to what you have in these two releases and the EP, and it's like it's insane, and it's like this outsider's perspective. You get such a different sense of what the music is versus the actual person putting that music out, and it can be, I don't know, it's almost like kind of a bummer of being a music producer, because the stuff you write, you're never as excited about it as people listening almost.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
Yeah. And I gotta admit, like, it's probably the fact that someone's writing something, you're listening to it like 50,000 times over and over again, and so maybe the first 15 times are great, and then at time number 50,000 it's like, I don't know.
Yeah, please get rid of this. That's like the other reason I released that whole EP, because I was just like sitting on it and I would just like wait, and then I go back and like listen to it in my car or whatever, just to like car check it.
Yeah.
Which is like a thing, because cars and their shitty ass speakers.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, this sucks. And I like go back and mix the whole EP again, and like a month later do it again. And I was like, I'm done. I'm putting this out. I'm not doing this anymore.
Yeah, I mean, at some point, that's part of it. It's just like, if you listen to it over and over again, you're gonna get almost sick of the music and be like, I don't think this is anything. And then again, from an outsider, they listen to that song for the first time and they love it. And that's why music has this crazy short shelf life too. Like, people release music and there's so much music coming out that a song will be popular or a release will be popular for a few weeks, and then there's something new, and people are on to the next thing. It's like, as a producer, there's like this churning mentality of like always putting out new stuff.
Yeah. And it's also this whole thing of like the people that people are like massively influenced by, like Deadmau5, for example. You could call that like timeless music.
Right.
So you like, when you listen to these people and you're like, I want to be like them, you have like this pressure to make quote unquote timeless music.
Right.
But it's not that simple.
No.
Obviously. So it's like a incentive to get more and more music out, so that you can like see if something sticks for a really long time. And I think I accidentally did that with Demise, possibly. I'm not entirely sure yet. Because it's only been not even a year. Yeah,
that still blows my mind. That so you had been, and let me backtrack just for a sec to make sure I'm clear on it. So like, you had started in Ableton, and Demise was written like a year after, like your start in Ableton.
About a year and a half, yeah.
Holy shit, man, that's crazy.
Yeah,
you're like,
that's
so
a lot of YouTube.
Yeah. And that's part of it. I know Hayes is in the same boat. So he was producing for about a year, and then he had that release on Mousetrap. But I think that's I think that's uncommon. I mean, across the board, I think that short of a time frame is pretty uncommon. And the fact that you mentioned that, like, a lot of YouTube is, I think, really important, because I think people will start out and be like, I'm just going to sit in front of my computer in Ableton and play with things until stuff sounds good. But really, like, cut the line and just watch the YouTube videos, watch the good tutorials on showing you, like, proper sound production, because that's what's going to, there's just so much information out there. That's what's going to, like, push it ahead and allow for it to actually get good faster.
Yeah. And people will always be like, in this server, specifically, like, most of the time, there's a server that's joint with the EDM production subreddit.
Okay.
Or whatever the hell it's called. Called EDMP, because, I mean, like, EDM
makes
production.
sense.
And people will always join and be like, hi, I haven't opened a DAW in my life. How do I do this? It's like, okay, well, go play with a DAW for a month.
Yeah.
And then go watch some YouTube, and then come here and ask some questions.
Yeah.
You can't do, like, exclusively either of those. You can't just ask questions, because, like, there are so many questions to be asked, and so many things you could just, like, Google or figure out by yourself.
Right.
And you can't just, like, only watch YouTube, because, you know, sometimes people give off bad information, not to name any names. And you can't just only mess around in Ableton, because people, you know, have this knowledge.
Right.
And they want to give you this knowledge. That's usually why they're in this server, because they either, like, want information from you, or they want to give out information. That's why I'm still in there, because I like helping people. And I learned a lot from that server, and I like helping people out. But, like, you really got to, like, be multifaceted in your learning process, or you're going to be really, really slow about it. And I, like, a lot of the time with these people that, not everyone, because, like, Julian Gray, for example, like, he's been at it for a really long time,
right?
And he's been really diligent about it, and learned from a ton of people. But, like, I see these people that are like, oh, I've been at it for, like, 10 years, and I'm like, oh, well, like, what do you do? And they're like, oh, I just, like, you know, messed around in Ableton for, like, 10 years. And it's like, okay, well, you didn't think to, like, get anyone else's opinion.
Right. Yeah, that's part of it. I mean, if you're just, you know, dicking around in Ableton, that, like you're right. It's like this combination of, okay, you got to progress somehow. Yeah. You're not going to really progress just by sitting there, and you could get real, like, I think it would just take more time rather than properly working hard, but then reaching out to people, utilizing all these resources. And it's like, it is crazy that things like YouTube, there's so many videos out there. There's thousands of videos, you know, and that's how you can get these dudes that are really young making really, really good music. I don't know if you're familiar with Watney. He's, like, around in some of the Discord channels. Okay, so he submitted a song on one of Julian's streams, and it was really good. And Julian off the bat is like, dude, I don't have any critiques. Like, I want to send this to people I know at Injuna. Like, and it was his first time submitting on that stream, and I had no idea. I came across his Twitch channel the other day, and he looks like a pretty young kid, you know. And I mean, fuck, man, it's a really cool time to be able to do this, just because there's so much information out there, and technology's so cheap. You can work on this stuff for next to nothing, you know. You don't have to be rich to have a fucking production studio, and and this is what happens from it. Yep.
It's neat.
It's super neat. You know, and you can release, like, solo EPs without distribution on Spotify, and it has, you know, it's crazy. So one thing, this came up the other day. I saw this article. I thought it was really fucking bizarre. So there's now AI generated music. Have you heard about this?
Yes.
Dude.
Sometimes it's not bad.
That's another part of it. Okay, so I found this article, right? It was from The Verge. It's like how AI generated music is changing the way hits are made or whatever. So, like, I started looking into it, and one guy, he goes by the acronym, or by the name Skygy. Have you heard of that? SKYGGE. Okay, so he put together, everything was AI generated for the songs, and he went under this alias Skygy or whatever. But dude, as you mentioned, it's formulaic, but it sounds like the formula that's used is like catchy.
Yeah. I mean, with enough limitations, like how specific music theory is, if you like restrict it to like a certain kind of music theory, I'm sure it'll sound good.
Right.
Like if you restrict it to like, you can only do 1-6-5-4 chords or whatever, and like make melodies based off of that. It's really funny. This is such a random tangent, but I'll hear like pop music, for example. Like people always complain about how it's like the same 4 chords,
right?
But it's like not really about that.
Yeah.
And it used to like really bother me, but if like you listen to pop music, it's like the same 4 chords a lot, but the melody is always different, and the melody is always really good. And you could like take that melody and you could change the chord progression like a million times.
Yeah.
And it would still work.
Yeah.
Because no one's listening to the chord progression when they listen to pop music. They're just listening to melody. And that's probably why that AI thing works.
Yeah.
Because as long as it's like interesting and the melody sounds okay, I'm sure it sounds good.
Yeah, it makes me think that there's some kind of it's interesting. So I looked a little bit behind the scenes, like what's going on, and I guess it's using like IBM Watson deep learning, or maybe Google has one too, where it's taking a bunch of songs in and it's looking for patterns, and based on this crazy amount of data, it's then generating somehow a song based on it. But you're right when you talk about that pop music, because there can be these similarities, like what this AI stuff's probably doing, but it's similarities, but it's also something really unique in the melody that's going to make it some crazy 100 million view song. I mean, you can't just shit that out. You can't just roll out of bed and be like, I'm going to write a pop hit. I mean, even though it might sound simple, just how the song changes over time, it's not like there's like these little subtleties in how the song is written that have to be catchy, and there's something to that it can't be easy,
Yeah
and
it's pretty formulaic, so it makes sense that an AI could do it in that kind of genre.
Right. Well, I guess there was one guy behind the scenes writing like every pop song for some time. He's like this Icelandic dude, I think.
Max Martin.
Yeah, he wrote like all the NSYNC songs, all the Backstreet Boys songs. That dude. Yeah.
It's actually a lot. He has a lot less market share than you'd think. It's something like 4%, which is still like a lot.
That's
like
a lot
of like 4% is like 4 out of 100. So if you think about how many like famous pop acts there are, like you can look at the Billboard Top 100 and there can be 100 different artists, and there's still people that you're like, why are they not in the top 100?
Right.
There's like at least 20 or 30 people that get their songs written by Max Martin.
Yeah.
That's still a really small market share.
It is, yeah. I guess, 4%, yeah. It makes me wonder. I mean, of course, like the songs that come to my mind are just like those like iconic Backstreet Boys and NSYNC songs 15 years ago, when I was like 13, 15, back in the day. And they're catchy, right? They're super catchy, but it kind of makes you wonder how much of it is just like cultural too. Like if so many people are excited about this NSYNC song, then the next one it's like, all right, I'm gonna just rip out some chords. Like I'm gonna work on the song, but it's not gonna be like groundbreaking, and it's still gonna be popular because NSYNC's doing it. So people like NSYNC, Yeah. You kind of wonder. I don't know.
Yeah.
That would be a pretty sweet life if you could just ghost produce for.
It would.
Taylor Swift or something.
Dude, I cannot ghost produce for the life of me. If I am making music and I don't like it, and it's not what I want to make, then I will hate it.
Yeah.
And like, for example, there's this song that certain people know that I made that's like a drum and bass song,
and
I cannot stand that song anymore. It just does not sound like me. And I like finished it and I mixed and mastered it, and I like, because for that reason I know, like, I've been thinking about it, because making music or making money in this industry when you're this small is like not easy.
Yeah.
Like if you look at Spotify's royalty rates,
It's like nothing.
It's like $1 is 250 plays, something like that. Apple Music's like double that, which is still not that good. Tidal's about 10 times Spotify, which is like okay, but still not that good. So when you're not getting like 1 million plays on every song, there's like no way you can make a sustainable income. So I've been like thinking about doing ghost producing, but there's like no way I could do it for that reason. I could not write other people's music. It would drive me insane.
What if it was just totally different, like country music, you know? No, it would be even worse.
Yeah.
I mean, like totally remove yourself, like not EDM at all, or like not electro house at all, just
especially country music. And I live in Texas too, so it's like I hear that all the time.
Yeah,
I could not. I know.
That would be no. Where in Texas?
Houston.
Okay, cool. I've heard really good things about Austin, Texas. I'm in Arizona, so I'm like right next door. Yeah. So
I lived in Austin for a while.
How do you like it?
I liked it.
Yeah.
We lived in a neighborhood that was kind of white privilege-y.
Okay.
So those kids were a little bit, spoiled. Like every spring break, every single one of my friends would like go to Colorado for a ski resort trip or whatever.
Uh-huh.
And I'm just like, how do you people like afford this? And I was like 9 years old. I was like, what? How are you all going to Colorado every year, like twice? That's so expensive. And then when we moved away, I realized like,
they're all rich. They're all just rich kids. Yeah. I know that would be nice. I would be cool with like my thing is, so on Instagram you see this all the time. I know there are people that are young, they're like around our age, and they just travel, and it has to be like family money, you know, but they just travel. Like how much, and you don't get a sense of how expensive life is until you start, like you're in your mid-20s, you realize how fucking expensive everything is. Like
to make your own money.
Yeah, to bankroll people traveling around the country, it'd be like 10 grand a month. So that's 120,000 a year, you know, just to wash, you know, just be like, my kids are traveling around the country. Like,
I don't know.
How does that, I mean, you must have to be some like oil mogul or something.
Something like that.
Good Lord.
Even then, like, if you make like a decent amount of money and you like buy like a house that's like, you know, in an okay area, has like some nice-ish features to it, you're still not going to have like leftover money to send your kids around the country for $120,000.
No way. No.
And like, why would you do that? Even if you could, when you could just like, you know, save it for their college or something.
Right.
And then you could pay for their whole college in 1 year. But I guess if you could pay for their whole college in 1 year, why wouldn't you do that?
Yeah. That's a funny thing too. Like, so I went down to U of A and I did my undergrad there, and there would be kids who would show up to class, they'd park their car, and they would have a Lamborghini or like some i8, some like $150,000 car. It's like, why are you going to college? Like, why are your parents sending you to college? You know? I would make music all day. That's all I do. Like, I wouldn't go to school. I'd make music. I'd podcast. That'd be it. I'd be fucking stoked. But
yeah, I have a friend like that.
Oh, that'd be.
Not gonna name any names, but I know someone that he has an Audi. And he's been producing for a while.
God dang.
And he doesn't really have the numbers to have an Audi, but his parents do. So.
Yeah. It's interesting. And so I saw somewhere, I think I was watching a TED Talk yesterday, and it's actually a pretty interesting topic, but this guy was saying that like 50% of millennials have a side hustle, and I think it's just because life is so expensive. It's expensive.
Yeah.
You know, it's way more expensive now than it ever was. And so even people working are like, well, this isn't enough. Got to figure out something.
Especially when like you're like practically required to go to college for a lot of things. And people are all like, oh yeah, you don't have to go to college, but like if you want to do like anything.
Yeah.
Not going to college is just like increasing the difficulty of everything by like 10.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like my friend just got a job at Chase, and I can pretty much guarantee you if he just like waited 4 years and like did some side computer science stuff because he was a computer science major, like made a GitHub, and then he like applied for Chase, they'd be like, no.
Yeah.
Not even because he's not like qualified, not because he doesn't know what he's doing, but just because he doesn't have a college degree.
Right.
Which like when you do that, and especially when you like can't afford to pay it right off the bat, and you have to take out loans. That's now like $80,000 in loans. Yeah. Like on average, because it's about $20,000 a year.
Yep.
On top of having to pay for food,
housing,
maybe having to pay a car payment, maybe having to pay car insurance, depending on like where your family is at.
Yep.
Now you have $80,000 in debt, and you have to work it off for like 30 years.
Yeah. It's very strange. And then you get into, so I pretty much did this, right? Like I went to school, I jumped around a little bit because I wanted to do something that like really I thought was going to be fulfilling, and so I went into this engineering program, which was cool. Like I enjoyed it, but you get out into the working world, and it's there to, you get this degree so you can make a company money, and it's very like, do this task, like just go do that task, make us money, and we're going to pay you like 0.0001% of what we make this year, So it's hard to enter, I think, the working world and be like, this is extremely fulfilling, like, cause you're making money for a company. And this kind of leads into something I was actually watching yesterday, and I thought this was fascinating. So there's this term called Ikigai. Have you heard of that by chance?
Nope.
Okay, so I think it's really fucking cool. So it was the first kind of people who came up with this idea or thought about this and like defined this term were in Okinawa, which is I kind of want to tie back to this, but it's like one of the largest blue zones in the world. So this idea is that you find some sort of life purpose rather than work, right? So in the States, we get a degree, start working, and you work just to kind of pay bills. And oftentimes you ask someone who's working in a corporate grind, you're like, hey, what are your hobbies? And it's like,
yep.
I go out, I go hiking, but it's like, do you really go hiking? Probably not. You just work, because you're so damn busy paying bills, working, paying bills, and so this idea is of Ikigai, not to like totally get off track here, but the idea is to find this life purpose, and that's what the term means. And the idea is to find something that you're passionate about, that you're good at, that will make you money, and that will give back to the world. So like if it hits on those four things, it can be this like really fulfilling thing to do in a person's life. And in that place where this idea was termed and people really followed this idea in life, they have the highest number of people living past 100 per capita in the world. So
that's interesting.
Yeah. So there's this correlation between like if you have fulfillment and meaning in your life based on what you do to make money or you're like you live a happier, longer life too.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's interesting that you live longer.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's probably like people retire and then they're like, I don't know anything except working. So what the what do I do? And then
yeah.
Yeah,
I always feel bad. Especially like I'm 21. So I'm like just getting to the point where I can like look at people that are older than me and like be able to analyze them without being like, oh, they're older. Oh,
yeah,
disgusting.
right.
And it like is kind of sad when you can see someone that like isn't too fulfilled in their job, and they're like, oh, I'm fine, I have a hobby, and it's like not enough, because it's like what spending 9 hours a day working, and then you get home, and then you gotta like get groceries and cook your food and eat and shit like that. And you have kids, you have to take care of your kids, go to their stuff. It leaves you like an hour to do whatever you want. So you're like spending 1/24 of your life doing what you want to do.
Right. And you never see your kids. Imagine having a family and never seeing them because they're in school or you're working, you know? That's crazy. Yeah. It's crazy. And it's...
Don't get me wrong, though. There's definitely people that are working in a corporate space. Like I can tell my dad, for example, really enjoys it.
Uh-huh.
And my friend who got his job at Chase really enjoys that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And like would do it all day. And he does.
Yeah.
This is his job. But I see people that don't enjoy it.
Right.
And you can tell.
Yeah. It's not good. If someone's in that position and they're just dreading it. I mean, you're right. It's a huge portion of someone's life. And then if you only have 1/24 that you're enjoying, and then, okay, you get the weekends, but Sunday you're really doing chores and getting ready for Monday. So it's crazy. It's really, really interesting. And I mean, I think it's not a hard concept to talk about with music producers. 'Cause like, dude, you did it. Yeah. Like you're like, hey, I want to do what I want to do. But for real, like you're like, I want to do this. I'm going to dedicate my time to it. I'm going to dedicate my life to it. And fuck it, man. 'Cause you know, someone could be in your same situation in that graduate or that undergrad program and say like, no, I'll kind of do it on the side and then get the degree, but you don't really want to get the degree. Yeah. And then you're working, you know, and then life passes you by. Yeah.
That's why I dropped out. Because after the whole Deadmau5 thing happened in 2017, like late 2017, that was my 5th semester of college. I was going into my 6th, and I hadn't signed up for classes yet because I forgot because I was so busy. And it was like getting to the point where you couldn't sign up anymore, and I was like, you know, I don't have any time, so why would I?
Yeah.
Because then I'm just like half-assing 2 things. And why would I do that? Because then I'm just going to do a bad job of both of them.
Right.
Apparently that was a good decision.
Hell yeah, dude. I mean, I like if there was any sign to be like, should I do this? Should I continue on or not? Like fucking Deadmau5 hitting you up.
Seriously.
That's got to be it, you know? Mm-hmm. That's, yeah. But that's a really good point that you bring up too, because if you say continued on and then you're kind of half-assing both, a person may not even know that they're half-assing the music, or they might be kind of like, nah, the music's good. I'm going to put time into it. It's good. And unknowingly, it's not as good as it could be. And then that critical time where you could have been submitting more music to Mousetrap, all these different things are happening, that may subside. Like that opportunity may close if you didn't fully dedicate yourself to it. So, fuck, man.
Right. Yeah. And sometimes I'll like doubt myself too. I mean, like, who doesn't? But because I will have these days where I'm just like sitting here playing video games. But it's also like with writing music specifically, you have to be in the right mentality. So I spend a lot of days just getting myself in the right mentality, and that's just that's like been like the past week for me, except for the days when I'm fixing my sleep schedule and staying up until 2 in the afternoon after not falling asleep. But yeah, that like also ties into like the kind of my quote unquote my sound or whatever. Because I realized like recently that the direction I was going wasn't really staying true to myself in a way, and to like a lot of people when they say staying true to myself, it like doesn't mean anything. It's like, what is yourself?
Yeah,
like, I'm staying true to like myself. Like, you have to define that. So like for me, that's like why I started doing this in the first place, and that's because I liked the way that Deadmau5 writes music. I liked the way that Film Score sounds. I liked 2014 EDM specifically, and if you listen to the stuff that I'll put out, it sounds a lot like 2014. Not that that's a bad thing, but it does. But I just spent a lot of days just like convincing myself that I shouldn't be, copying Rez or copying 1788L or literally copying Deadmau5 or copying other people that are on Mousetrap so that I can get on Mousetrap more easy or something like that. It's a mental battle for like half of my career, and then the other half is like marketing, writing music, and networking.
Right. I would imagine it has to be really, really challenging to be in a situation where okay, so just taking a step back, like when I work on music as a bedroom producer, right? There's really no responsibility for me because no one is like, oh, no one's really listening to it, right? So it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
I could fucking do whatever. But
yeah, but that's like almost like blissful and nice that no one gives a shit, because now I feel like I have all this pressure, even though I'm not even that big or anything, and I don't have any. I do have some like dedicated fans, and I appreciate them, but
yeah,
which is really an odd concept, but to think about. But I just feel like, you know, I put out this big song, and now everything else has to sound like that song, or it's not going to do well.
Right.
And if like you go to my old SoundCloud or whatever, I have like a lot of songs that are just like, I'm really happy with them. I don't really like the mix, but I'm really happy with like the way I wrote them or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's just trying to get back there constantly.
Yeah.
It's a struggle when you blow up randomly.
Oh, for sure. Because I mean, everyone's expressed that. Like I read an interview with Deadmau5, and there was a time where he played Snow Cone live when the W album like just came out, and the crowd just didn't like it, you know, and he's,
you know
what?
The show he debuted at, I was at that show.
No way.
It was at Free Press in Houston. That was summer of 2016. That was right after I started producing.
Really?
Yeah.
Did everyone hate Snow Cone live?
Yeah. It was like full circle. I swear that was like the best Deadmau5 that I've ever seen. Because like there's a ton of them that are like online or whatever. He played Snow Cone, and he like was doing this thing where he would make Snow Cone type, you know, like 90s rap beats or whatever, and put 90s rappers over them.
Oh, cool.
So he played that, and he played Snow Cone. He played like all three versions of Maths, and he played Gula, and he played Avarisha, and then he played FML, and I was like, because I like hadn't heard FML in years. That was such a weird experience, because I was like kind of doubting going into it, and then I saw that show, and I was like, oh my gosh, I should do this.
Dude. Oh, man, if anything's going to be inspiring, it's going to be one of those, because seeing him live is amazing. And
he's really good.
Oh my God, so good. And it's all his music. I mean, that's one thing that we talk about, and we don't even, you almost glaze over and you forget that everything's his. It's not like some DJ who's playing 90 different, you know, track. You know, it's like, it's on a whole different level.
But yeah, it's interesting to hear that he didn't, you know, like he had a bad crowd response, because I know Houston really liked it. They fucking loved it, because I mean, well, you know, Houston, Houston and rap, Houston and beats and stuff like that. Yeah, they really enjoy that kind of stuff. But it's kind of weird to hear that he had a bad response for that song.
Maybe it wasn't when he debuted it, but I read, like, I think it was a Rolling Stone interview where he said that there was at some point he was playing Snow Cone, he got really like a really bad response from it, or just not like a great response from it, and he was self-critical. Like he was talking about the W album. He's like, there's a couple tracks I like on it, but there's a bunch of stuff I'm not really happy with. But like, it's that same idea that he, from your perspective, my perspective, is making the best music, you know, but you put yourself in his shoes. He's having that same conversation where he's saying, I wish I could get back to where I was. I'm not really happy with the new music. You know, it's a battle for everyone.
Yeah.
And
it's not even like the sound, and that's the trap that we all fall into, including him apparently. Where it's not even like the sound of the music that like you wish you could go back to. It's the feeling of writing that kind of music.
Yeah.
Because like if I like went back and tried to write a song like those, I have like 3 songs that were like on my SoundCloud earlier. I already said that, I think. One of them was Kinetic, which I put on my EP because I really liked that song, and I wanted it to work, and I wanted it to sound better. But if I went back and wrote something like that again, I'd just get bored. And I'd feel unfulfilled by the lack of, you know, good composition that those songs had, even though they sounded cool or whatever. It was just kind of like the feeling of, you know, writing something that I really enjoyed. And I haven't really had that since writing those, honestly.
Do you think that then, I don't know, that's really interesting. So it's like maybe lack of pressure. You can just, it's not that you can totally do whatever you want, because you still can. You can write whatever music you want right now, but maybe it's what you're kind of saying is like the pressure of just having like more releases out where people are recognizing your music. It makes it hard to just like really get in the zone and work just on the music itself, get inspired to make the music. It's more of a challenging task now.
Yeah, and it's kind of like cloudy. What I want to do with myself. Because I am purposely avoiding being influenced by outside pressures or like trying to.
Yeah.
But in doing that, in a way, you kind of almost force yourself into doing something that you didn't really want to do in the first place because you're trying not to do something that you also didn't want to do.
Oh, dude, that's such a good insight. Yeah.
And it, like there's this one song I just started writing, and it's like really weird. It's like funky, like 110, but it would work like I said earlier. It sounds like electro slowed down. But when I speed it up to 125, it sounds frantic. But it's like I don't even know what I think about it, and it kind of sounds cool, but like I don't know what I think about it.
Yeah.
And it's kind of sad because I used to like make songs and be like, ooh, I really like making, like, this is fun, and I really enjoyed putting it out, and I wanted people to like it. And they didn't at the time because I was small. But
I just think that's such a funny insight, because you're like making the concerted effort, you're like, okay, I don't want to think about exterior influences. I just want to really focus in on the music, and almost by thinking that, it's like an influence, It's a mind. I mean, yeah, it's a trap. It's a mind. It is. It's totally a mind fuck, and that's why. Oh man, the conversation I've had so far doing this podcast and just thinking about it for myself, and man, it really shows that making music can be really, really challenging, because there's this whole mental aspect to it too, to just do what you want, but you kind of want to stay relevant too. You want to make things that are intriguing for people listening, but you don't want to get caught up in like what's really popular right now, etc. And from
the big struggle is like when you are making quote unquote what's really popular right now, and you're like, I'm just pandering.
Right. Because Rez blew up, and then there are people that you kind of hear, they're like, oh, it kind of sound,
Yeah. That like make something similar, or were making something similar beforehand, and
exactly.
Like, am I pandering now?
Right. And then I guess I don't know the artist exactly, but someone was saying that Rez isn't even necessarily like a very brand new sound. There are other artists that have produced at that tempo the same style before. So
Staffelstein was the big one.
Yeah. That's it. Yep. So for that reason, it's like, well, and that almost opens up this conversation to, there are so many people making music right now that it is really, really challenging to be 100% unique. People are going to pull on different ideas from other artists. The level that you do so, I think, is important, because if someone's like, I'm going to sound exactly like Deadmau5, I mean, that's going to be it's going to be nothing. No one's going to care or listen. But of course, everyone's going to have influence from other artists. It's just, what percentage is that, for one? And because there's so many different people out there making music, it can be challenging to stand out and be unique. I mean, everyone's making music now,
Yeah. It's like the new thing.
Right.
Everyone started a band.
Yeah.
And now everyone's a music producer.
Everyone's a music producer and a DJ. Yeah.
Yeah.
But at the same point, because making music for myself too, I think about these things a lot. Like that concept can be kind of depressing. We're like, well, everyone's making music. How am I going to sound unique? Like how do you stand out making music like this? But at the same point, when you hear of someone who's making really good music, who maybe hasn't gotten recognition yet, it turns out that in 6 months or a year, they have recognition because they're making good music. I mean, if you're making good music, it's going to get heard. So I think that you can't get too worried about all of it, because I really do believe, I mean, if you put out the good stuff, people are going to listen.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ah, man, it's So when you're working on new tracks, then I know we've kind of been talking about it because you're kind of having this thought process of just making sure you're making music true to yourself. You're getting in the right mental space to work on music. What exactly is it like? Is there certain times during the day where you can kind of get outside? Yes. Is it in the middle of the night?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And when I wrote that song that I just wrote, it was when I was fixing my sleep schedule, and I was like, how am I going to go about fixing my sleep schedule? Like, should I just like try and wake up earlier and earlier? Or should I like take some melatonin? And I was like, one day I was like, fuck it, I'm just gonna like stay up all night, like take a 5-hour nap, and then go to sleep at 2 a.m. and then wake up at 10, and it worked. I did wake up at 10. But in that time from like 7 a.m. to like 11 a.m, I was like delusional and tired enough to like be awake and like be able to think somewhat. And that's when I wrote that kind of music, which is kind of funny because like that's almost what you want, but like I wasn't really feeling it because I wasn't able to think that well. But definitely in the middle of the night is when I write my best music, because I'm not, well, like people always say this, but I'm like not distracted by people. There's like no one ever online in the middle of the night, which is kind of sad because sometimes I'll be up anyway because I have like really bad insomnia. And there'll be no one to talk to, but I'll be up in the middle of the night, and if I make music, then I'll have no distractions, and the only distraction will be myself. Right. Which is still a hurdle, but
still, yeah. It's like the last hurdle.
Yeah.
Yeah, then that's got to be another kind of, not frustration, but if you write the song that you really like in the middle of the night, you're like, okay, I'm fixing my sleep schedule, I'm gonna just stay up, and then it turns out that when you're in that, you're staying up so late that you're almost delusional of it, and then a song comes and it's good, or not. I mean, like, but you really enjoy it and you like that path that's come from it. Then it's almost gonna push you to start just doing that all the time, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just really unhealthy. Deadmau5 actually talked about this in his masterclass, and I thought he was joking. And then I started doing it.
Yeah, I've heard of it. Yeah, you're probably about to mention the same thing, but just like sleep deprivation to get kind of out of his own way and start making music. Yeah. Yeah,
because he wrote Imaginary Friends like in the middle of the night. Because I remember the stream, and I like started watching it. I was like, oh my God, it's like 3 a.m. And I like went to bed and woke up, and he was still working on it. But he would have never written something like that. I've never heard him write anything like that. That's like, build up and drop. Granted, the drop was like really long, so it's still really like Deadmau5. Because he writes like the longest drops ever.
Yeah.
But like that kind of like really heavy, aggressive electro bass that's not real bass that's like not really like a groove per se. It's still like fun to listen to, and it's still danceable, but it's like kind of like a banger for lack of a better word. He doesn't really write bangers, right? So like it's really weird for him to write that, but he wrote it like in the middle of the night, which is like the same thing for this song I'm working on. Like, why would I ever write this? But it's cool. So
he's said in some interviews where he'll start, and we see it on the streams too, like he'll start at say 10, and then by the middle of the night, like 2 a.m, he is sleep deprived, so he's almost in a state where he can get out of his own way and be a bit delusional. And then it'll, like he says, it allows him to come up with the most interesting ideas, because you're just not that level of maybe self-reflection or like worry about, I don't know, working on a track or whatever kind of is turned off in the brain at that point, I guess. And it's interesting, man. Almost everyone I've asked has said the same thing. It's like middle of the night. That's when writing music is good.
Yeah. I think that also like something correlation causation, but like something to do with creative types and how they don't sleep.
Yeah.
And it just ends up being that way because you're up and you're like, okay, well, no one's awake except for like the only people I talk to at like 2 a.m. are like Demise
right,
and Ash sometimes, and like some people that are awake on the Mousetrap Discord. That's about it.
Well, that's it. Awake. Yeah. Well, that's a sign right there. I mean, Demise and Ash, and you, 3 guys who are releasing on Mousetrap.
Yep.
Makes sense.
Exactly.
Shit. That's the key right there. That's what you didn't say at the beginning. You're like, dude, I just don't sleep. This is it. Podcast over. Like, start the podcast, end the podcast.
Just don't sleep. Just move to Australia.
Yeah.
Come back to the U.S. and have jet lag forever.
Only have friends in Australia.
Yeah. I'm actually like, I was curious like what my sleep schedule would be considered normal in, and it's like Sydney.
Yeah.
If I lived in Sydney, this would be a normal sleep schedule.
Yeah. Dude, well, I have one buddy in particular who's in Germany, and he's pretty much on my schedule. Like, when I'm going to bed, he'll still be up, and he's, like, working on music. I'm like, dude, you got to go to sleep. So it's easy for us to chat, because I have to, dude, like, unfortunately, just having to be at work at 8, there'll be times I stay up, and I'll know, like, okay, I'm not going to get that much sleep tonight because I want to work on stuff. But after it was the last episode, there was a sleep researcher on, and
yeah, I saw that. I was going to listen to that.
It's really interesting. So it's not as much important, from what I gathered, is time of day, which is good. Like, as long as this person is sleeping around 7 hours a night, it seems to be, from the research he was talking about, okay. But it's for the people that sleep like less than 6 hours. He was talking about the research where that he's done and he's looked at, and if you sleep less than 6 hours a night, like, all-cause mortality goes through the roof. Cancer, diabetes, heart disease, all these different things. Yeah. And I had heard about it a bit, but I thought it was fascinating because, myself included, we'll work on music, especially with if I want to work on music in the middle of the night, I'll stay up because I want to do that and go to work the next day. But dude, that blew my mind. Less than 6 hours is not good.
Yeah, I can't do that. I've tried.
Yeah.
When I was fixing my sleep schedule. And I like fall asleep at like 3 and like, okay, I'm setting an alarm for 8. And then wake up at 8 and be like, nope.
Yeah.
I'm in bed.
Yeah. Well, good, man. I mean, it's definitely for the best, because I know people out there who, especially when I was in school, that just would always be like, no, I don't sleep that much. I'm fine. I'm like, yikes. What? You don't sleep?
That's a good way to fail.
I know. Yeah. And yeah, now with all the research there showing it's really, really bad, I'm trying not to as much. So I'm trying to sneak in music at different times when I can.
Yeah.
But fuck, I'm trying not to stay up as late anymore, because at least for right now, I mean, the idea is I mean, like, the dream is one day just being able to, do whatever the hell I want and work on music and podcasts and shit. But yes or no? So
okay.
But so what's coming in the future then? You're working on tracks. No like set. I think we talked about it at the very beginning, but like no set releases, no nothing. Everything's kind of
up in the air.
Kind of up in the air right now. Well,
although not as much as I think. I think. But I'm trying, obviously, to get Mousetrap to release something, but I already have like another idea for. So I sent them the EP, right? And like after I sent it to them, I was like re-listening to it, and I was like, "Why did I make this an EP?" Because usually when you hear an EP, it's like, or you would want it to be cohesive in some sort of way, and and I was listening to No Taker on this other podcast called Behind the DAW, which is like in conjunction with this YouTube series called In the DAW, which I like used to watch, but I just saw he was on it, so I listened to it, and he was talking about how he only really makes EPs on purpose. Like, he'll take one idea and just like expand on it, because like if there's like a really complex idea that can't all be fit into one song. Like you obviously shouldn't do that because then it becomes too cluttered. So when you do that, you have an EP that's like ready, or like an album or something. And like Getter, for example, Getter's album Visceral is definitely him being like, I want to make like this sort of trap future bass thing, and he just like made 12 songs of it. So I was like listening to it, and I was like, these are all like not the same track. So I think if they reply to me, I'm gonna like be like, okay, can you take like these 2 or 3? And I already know which ones that I want to give to them, and then one of them, I might try to get another label on board with one track, another label on board with another track, because I think it would fit in those 2 places. But stay tuned for that, because I don't know.
Well, I think that's a really good way of expressing it, because especially people starting out, like sending music out and be like, okay, I think I have an EP. I think that's a good way to address it, is like kind of a one coherent idea, as it's not like one theme through a track, but it's kind of the same. Everything kind of fits together for a few tracks and has a distinct sound. I myself have worried about this, thinking about sending out EPs, because if you have 2 or 3 tracks that are very different, someone might look at it and be like, well, I like one, but just you're like, where's the unique sound for this person, you know?
There's also something to be said though about when you're smaller and unproven. Like, I think what gives me like the stamp of approval is like having a track on We Are Friends, and you can just like go listen to it and be like, all right, cool. Yeah, I guess like if they'll take them, I'll take them. But having consistency is usually what labels are worried about, because there's definitely a lot of one-hit wonders, and I have to be careful with my words. You know, some labels will be okay with that, and they'll be like, sure, whatever. Like, good track, I'll sign it. But some labels are really, really concerned about consistency, and I think Mousetrap is one of them. And I think a couple of other larger EDM-based labels that are, you know, like well-known, you like know the names of, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about, really do care about consistency, and when you release more than one track. So if you like send them like, you know, not necessarily an EP, but like a compilation, I'm sure that might not be a bad thing. Interesting.
Yeah, I guess. I guess that makes sense, and it is funny, because I think part of it for people starting out too, it's hard to kind of get the wheels turning off the bat in terms of sending out music, because if you have maybe a handful of songs you're really happy with, you're right, and a label could look at it and be like, well, where is this going to go? You know, I don't know. You like, can't. Yeah.
This sounds okay, but where are the rest of them?
Right. Where's everything else? So, and I've asked around in terms of, hey, is the best idea just to sit on everything until you send out to labels and hopefully it gets picked up, or do a bunch of self-releases on Spotify? Then if someone looks at it, they can say, okay, the new stuff this person's sending is awesome. Then they can at least go back and look a little bit kind of in the history books, if you will, on Spotify, and see, okay, it's not like he's written 4 songs, you know, he or she. Yeah.
I've been thinking about that. Not that it like really applies to me anymore, because I just kind of like skyrocketed out of nowhere. But is it worth it to put independent stuff on Spotify just so people can see it? Right. Or like, is it not, like, should you get like a second opinion? You know, be like, okay, maybe don't put that out because it looks bad. Like a label will go back and look at it and be like, oh god, what is this?
Right. Well, and that's what makes it so challenging, because you want to do stuff you enjoy. Like it's such a fucking catch-22, because when you're sitting there working on music, you're like, oh, this is a cool idea, I want to develop it. And if you yourself like it, then damn, it sucks if you it sucks if you sit on it, then you're like, well, I don't know if I can release it, because how is everyone else going to look at it, because I want to start releasing labels, you know? It's this, it makes it challenging, and I don't know.
Yeah. And that's like part of the reason I like was sitting on that EP for so long, because I was like, I don't know, this sounds good yet. And I still like go back to it, and I'm like, this is kind of like the same song 4 times. But it at least shows that I'm consistent.
Well, fuck, man. At the same point, like, from what we haven't heard, my guess is that it's really fucking good, because just the way that you've expressed previous releases, you're like, yeah, you're like, and then, you know,
yeah, I'm pretty happy with these, actually.
Yeah. Okay. That's good. I'm sure it's going to be incredible, because dude, again, from everything I've heard so far, super, super impressive. And I guess just kind of tie things back to when we first started talking, when we were chatting on Discord way back in the day, I didn't know that it was such a short amount of time from starting. And of course, as you mentioned, having experience with piano and other things, but dude, that's so crazy, man. And I don't know, I'm really stoked to see where this goes. I can only imagine that there's going to be a lot more releases in the future. I don't know. I think it's going to be really fucking cool.
Yeah, I hope so.
Dude. No, I'm sure of it, man. But it's crazy. So I don't know if it seems this way, but we knocked out more than an hour.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Well,
that's what dude. Well, we were talking about this before we even started recording. I was like, hey, so I'll start with a little intro. We'll just kind of jump right into it and see what happens. And I told you, I was like, it's going to be an hour is going to fly by. And it does, right? I mean, you start chatting and an hour flies by and nothing, no time.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
That's fun.
Yeah, dude. It's really cool. I really appreciate you doing this.
Appreciate you having me.
Yeah, of course, man. Of course. And, this thing is just kind of starting out. This is the second Twitch stream, I think. Actually, the first that will be saved on Twitch. The first one, I didn't change the configuration to actually save the stream, and it froze anyways. So, but yeah, man, I mean, I really, really appreciate you doing it. And if you want to do it again in 6 months, a year, whatever, I'd be more than happy to do it, man. This has been
definitely.
super cool. Well, there it is. Episode 26 with Kindred. He was awesome to be so willing to come on, sit down, have this conversation. So thank you to him. Thank you to all of you out there listening. As I mentioned, it's just awesome. I'm having the best time doing these. So go check him out. Check him out on Spotify. Check him out on SoundCloud. Really go show your support. It makes a huge difference. Just listen to his streams, listen to his music. Dynamia is awesome. It's an awesome track. So I highly recommend going and showing your support and checking out his music. Now that's it. We have more episodes coming in the future. This Sunday, as I mentioned, I will be streaming on Twitch first, twitch.tv/Chasingcreativitypodcast with Solanka. He's released on Lane 8's record label, This Never Happened. He has a beautiful track called Belladonna. We'll be talking about it. So check the stream first, and then there will be the following episode released that week, or the second, later on Spotify and iTunes. And now also, if you want to go check our conversation, Kindred's and I's conversation on Twitch, you can do so. It's still saved there. So the videos are still there. So that's it. More episodes to come. Really looking to continue doing this thing and releasing those episodes. And I look to speak with you all again soon. Again soon. Again soon. Again soon.